welcome to the show this evening. Tonight's guest, we have the director, founder of Talif Collective out of Fremont, California. We want to bring him on the show and allow him to give a little information about Talif, the reentry program, and what Talif Collective has to offer anyone that needs it. So we want to bring on Osama Cannon from Talif Collective.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. The reentry program at Talif grew out of a very real, very tangible need, an experienced need for assisting the formerly incarcerated. I started my work with the incarcerated community sometime in the early 2000s and spent several years as a chaplain, both at California Medical Facility in Vacaville and then ultimately at Dual Vocational Institution at Tracy. DVI is one of the two main reentry facilities in Northern California, meaning where people are coming into the system, going out of the system, or on parole violations, etc. And the main population in that prison is what's called reception center. Reception center. So it's people that are doing short time. And so I guess you could say that I saw recidivism live and saw people coming in and out of the system real time. My capacity there was working as a Muslim chaplain, so my work was largely inspired by the Muslim faith tradition, as is the work of Talif Collective. But our services and our intention to help is not limited to any faith community. We want to help people, women and men of any faith community, or people who do not come from a particular faith community. I think the short version is that the prison industrial complex and the reality facing the multitude of people coming home to our communities as formerly incarcerated is a challenge that it's a multi-layer challenge. There's one layer that is almost kind of a global phenomenon. And what I mean by that is that we as a country have more people incarcerated than the top 30 European countries combined. Over 2 million people in prison, a completely disproportionate number of people in prison. So it kind of is a global problem in the sense that America, our homeland, is faced with that as something that we have to kind of talk about, and it's something that's known around the world. Then at a national level, it goes without saying that it's not one state or one community alone that suffers from or faces a challenge. But ultimately, the question of dealing with the formerly incarcerated community and assisting the formerly incarcerated community in re-entering society is ultimately a challenge faced at a community level, at a family level. And what I mean by that is people are not leaving prison going to some desert or going to some island. They're coming back to the same communities in which they grew up, most often coming back to the same communities in which they committed whatever crimes that led to them being incarcerated. So it's a reality faced by those of us who live in those same communities. And so Talif Collective is a community-based organization that attempts to assist people at the community level through financial assistance to people who are coming home and need just a cushion to land on. As you know, people will be released, paroled with $250 in their pocket, basically a pair of sweatpants and a bus ticket to wherever they're going to. And then faced with the challenges of employment, that magical box that is on the job applications, have you ever committed a felony, and the difficulties that come with that. So assisting people in terms of cushioning the reentry, but I think most importantly, assisting with the psycho-emotional and psycho-spiritual needs. Through our assessment, 100% of the participants in our programs have said that they need assistance in shifting their attitudes and shifting their behaviors. And I think that speaks volumes, that the formerly incarcerated community themselves recognize that there needs to be a profound shift in attitude to really succeed and to kind of beat the system, as it were, that is kind of a system, unfortunately, set up for people's failure. So Talif Collective's reentry program is really about that, about helping people reacclimate, helping people readjust, and helping people aspire to their highest potential as human beings. So that's just a little bit about what we do with the program.
Okay. Now, as you stated, that Talif is not strictly just for Muslims.
Mhm.
It's for anybody that needs help
Mhm.
coming home from prison.
Mhm.
Now, the reason why I asked this is because I go back to prison myself. I did 27 years and 9 months in prison, and I just recently come home myself. I converted in prison, and I'm Muslim myself. So I was part of the cycle that was kicked out, coming home and not having that cushion to say, and I came to Talif. You know, I'm employed at Talif right now, so I know the program that I'm in right now. It works, right? And I ask anybody that's watching the show tonight to, if you have any questions about this program, please call in and ask questions. If you have any concerns, please call and ask questions, because the questions are needed to be asked, and they need to be answered to the questions that you have. So we have the gentleman here that founded the program, that's a part of the program, and that's behind what's going on at Talif Collectives today. You know, and like I say, the program works. We have retreats for the formerly incarcerated, and the retreats are outstanding retreats.
Mhm.
We go up to the lake and get in boats and just have downtime, so to speak.
Mhm.
You know, we just had a retreat last month, matter of fact,
Mhm.
and it was an outstanding retreat. You know, brothers got together and they went and had fun, and just had time to get away and regroup with formerly incarcerated men. You know, so Talif Collective is a good program, and I recommend anybody that's coming home, if you need some assistance, if you need someone to talk to that's been on the same side, Talif Collective is a program that you need to come to. You know, so you know we.
Yeah, you mentioned the retreat. It was fascinating that, there's a kind of there's a nuts and bolts part to nonprofit work that relates to funding and relates to governance and relates to keeping the doors open and having a facility, etc. So there's almost the paperwork side of it, but then there's the soft side of it, the really where I think the magic really happens, the people work side of it. And it's really important to note that we try to emphasize as much as we can the people work over the paperwork, if that makes sense. We got our paperwork straight because you have to, but people work is more important than paperwork. Because it's not just number crunching and statistics and studies and what have you that's going to shift this. It really comes down to putting people, allowing people to occupy safe space together and to do community together. I never forget a brother came in to do kind of a visit when I was working in Tracy, and he shared about his successful parole and how he succeeded in getting a job, starting a company, etc. And on the way out of the chapel, there was two guys that heard him talking about his success, and he said to the other guy, he said, "Man, did you hear that story?" He said, "It can actually be done." Yeah. And it was as if a light went off in his head. Like for the first time, he realized, like, oh, it's actually a possibility. I can do it, yeah. And so taking women and men who've had that experience and allowing them to have a space to share experience has been really beautiful. And you mentioned the lake as well. And providing opportunities for people that are from communities that simply wouldn't enjoy those type of simple things that many people do enjoy unless they were facilitated. And it was interesting that one of the most noteworthy parts of our recent retreat was people jet skiing and people being on boats and just being able to do things that literally almost wouldn't occur to their mind as a possibility. There was a gentleman with us who did 47 years in prison and mentioned that the last time he had been on a boat was 1961. Wow. There was another guy who was with us who had been around the block. I mean, this is a guy who, he did hard time. And before we went, I said, "Hey, we're going to go on the boats." And he said, "I don't swim." And then said, since he got home after that, he's been taking swimming classes every Monday to overcome his kind of his phobia of swimming, as it were. So yeah, it's really beautiful work.
Yeah, it's something to see grown men that really actually never even been in water before, and go out and be in a boat with a lot of water, too much to drink.
Yeah.
Okay, and a whole lot to swim in.
Yeah.
But they go out and they have fun.
Yeah.
In that water, taking a chance. I might drown, but I'm gonna take a shot at it.
Right.
So Talif is a good program, an outstanding program, I should say, and people need to take a look at it and see, what Talif has to offer. I've been Muslim for a while, and I've seen a lot of things in changing, and I see Talif where you can go and you can mingle. Really, you can mingle. In some places you go, you can't mingle. You can't be certain places and do certain things. And Talif is unique. Unique in that form where you can go and you can mingle and you can talk to people. You know, and it's not something where you might smack your hand. You're not supposed to do it. Well, okay, but you know, it was wide open. You know, and I commend you for that, because without you, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, well, I mean that's really it's as it's named, it's a collective of people, and I get a lot more credit than I probably do. Really, I think it's a question for all of us of tapping into the truths of our respective faith traditions or whatever it is that inspires us to make sure that we're keeping the door open for people and providing folks another chance. Like we all, you know, as Dr. Cornel West says, I am who I am because somebody loved me.
Right.
And you know, and we're in a time, and many of us live in communities where that love isn't felt as tangibly as it used to be felt. That's a big part of the work, you know. And you mentioned conversion to Islam. It's fascinating that there are, over 10,000 Muslim inmates in California's correctional department alone. And Islam, in a very fascinating way, both enjoys a certain degree of street cred, as it were, especially amongst the black community, but also has been one of the faith traditions inspiring really profound change for people during their incarceration. And I think that it is important for us to note that the real measure of our Islam, or the real measure of whatever spiritual tradition is that we aspire to follow, is in our ability to tap into those truths and to be as universal as possible, to see people's humanity, man. And when we as a community, you know, we just lost this year, obviously, the great champion Muhammad Ali, who was known, obviously, for being the greatest boxer of all time, but also being the great humanitarian that he was. But it was Islam that inspired that in him. And we obviously know about the likes of Malcolm X, who himself was incarcerated, and it was Islam that inspired him to become the great man that he was. And I've seen that. It's fascinating that this is also happening in a time when Islam is being villainized, and Islam is being presented as a violent religion. And unfortunately, there are elements from within the Muslim global community that are failing to live up to the truths of Islam as a peaceful religion. I've seen people that were literally convicted murderers, that it was their commitment to Islam that changed them and inspired them to be literally some of the most gentle, sincere, loving, trustworthy people that I personally know. And again, I'm not talking from a distance. I'm talking about people who I've actually spent a number of years with. And I'm thankful that we've been able to be part of that. And I think that there are a multitude of other faith traditions as well that share in the beauty of being those forces for change for people. And it's really important we as a community support those efforts, you know.
Right. If we have anybody in the living rooms and the bedroom tonight that you feel that you have something to answer, call in. We have a number up on the screen there. Use that, pick your phone up and call in and ask the questions that you've been wanting to ask for years and haven't been able to. You have the opportunity to call in tonight and ask the questions that you want to ask. You know, don't listen to what somebody else tell you. You know, call in and find out. Get it from the source. Okay, we have that problem in our society. Somebody will tell you something about something, and you take that and you run with it, and you live with that. Instead of researching and finding out for yourself, you listen to what somebody else tell you. You know, don't be the monkey see, monkey do. You know, call in and find out for yourself. So that's what we want to do tonight. Yes, sir. You know, so we are live. We got a number on the screen, 628-444-5826. Call in and find out something that you've been wanting to find out for years but haven't had the chance to. So you can call in tonight and find out.
You know, I on that note, I fortunately I missed really kind of just by the grace of God, I missed luckily going to prison. I never did time, and the time that I did spend in prison was as a chaplain. But you got that call. You got that call.
Yes. Good evening. You're on live.
May I speak with Mr. Wendell James?
This is he speaking. Yes.
Oh, I'd like to know, is this a place for women also?
Yes, it is. Matter of fact, we have someone that can answer that question better than I can.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, indeed it is. I mean, both for the women who themselves have experienced incarceration, but also for the multitude of women who've been the backbone holding down the families while their sons or husbands or brothers have been doing time. So we offer support both for women who have been themselves incarcerated or for the mothers and wives and sisters of the men who've been incarcerated. So the short answer to your question is absolutely.
Okay, and is there an age limit?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so you accept seniors?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. We accept everyone.
And do you have a place for women and with children?
The different programs that we hold always welcome children, and many of the programs that we do hold have a specific space for child minding or babysitting.
Oh, okay.
Very
So
good.
this is not a live-in facility, is it?
No, ma'am, not currently. We do not currently have any transitional housing.
Oh, okay. And so how often does the program meet?
There's a program that meets once a month here in San Francisco that Mr. James could give you more details about. And we have several other programs that meet at different times in other places in the Bay Area.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
We have
Okay.
we have a support circle once a month here in San Francisco, and the support circle is located on Folsom Street. You can contact me at talifcollective.org in Fremont, California, and I'll give you more information on that question that you asked.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling.
You're welcome.
Yes, so anything that you need to ask, call in. We'll be more than glad to answer your questions. We have a little time left, so the question that the lady asked, it was a good question that she asked and was answered. So anything that you need to ask, feel free to call. The number is 628-444-5826. Any question that you wish to ask?
You know,
Call in.
what I was going to say on your point there about misconceptions and people, telling you what I was trying to say was that, I didn't do time. And before I went in as a volunteer and then ultimately as free staff, prison and people in prison were just kind of this myth,
Yeah.
this kind of story that had developed from, whatever you watch on TV and hear music. And the part that was most profound for me was sitting with the people that I sat with inside the prison, was that they're people just like you and just like me. They're no different than anybody. And it's literally a question of a choice, a bad choice. And sometimes not even a question of a choice, but literally just being at the wrong place at the wrong time, or being on the wrong end of the wrong attempt to get people put in prison. And it was just really profound for me. It did a lot for me in terms of challenging my own tendency to judge people. Just spending the time that I was able to spend with folks while they were incarcerated, and especially enjoying the liberty to leave at the end of the day.
Right.
It was a very different experience than having to stay there. A very different experience, but nonetheless, very, very profound.
Yeah. I know the imam here, Osama Khan, personally. I worked for him in DVI as his clerk. He was a chaplain, a Muslim chaplain at DVI for a number of years, and that's where I met Osama Khan. And we've done a lot of work together, and we continue doing work to this day. And like I told him earlier this evening, I love my work. I love my work working with people because people allowed me to turn my life around to who I am now today. And this is a great thing.
Come a long way, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Come a long way.
Thank
Wish
you.
you continued growth and blessings and openings.
Yeah, well, we have a long ways to go. I made a promise to my favorite girl, back in June. I made a promise to her. She told me before she passed that she was proud of me. That gave me my sign of approval. When my mother told me that she was proud of me, that signed everything.
Right.
And I made a promise to her that I'll make her proud of me for the rest of my life.
That's right.
So I got a long ways to go. I'm just
That's
a
right.
young teen.
Yes, you sure are.
So I got a long ways to go. But
And denial is not a river in Egypt.
at all. At all. So we have a lot of work to do in our communities. We have a lot of sick people in our communities, and all they need is someone to listen to them and talk to them. And sometimes you just need an ear, you know, you just need an ear to the person to tell you what their problem is, and sometimes just a little talk back, that's the cure, you know, so that's what we're here for, you know. So Talib Collective, this is part of what I do today. I work with Talib Collective, with the support group on once a month here in San Francisco. You know, we bring in people to give meditation to give problem solving skills. We have things that we can use to have a smooth transition back into society. So that's what we do today. You know, part of Talib Collective's tool bag that we use, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
So we want to thank you for coming on to the show tonight.
It's a pleasure and
We
honor
appreciate
to
you
be here.
having you to come in, and we're going to bring you back in some months.
It'd be my pleasure.
And come back and allow you to give some more information on Talib Collective. And we want to thank the audience for being part of our show tonight. You can see our show in the days to come. It'll be on YouTube. If you want to see it, whenever you want to see it, click it on and see the show and the information that we gave tonight. We'll be back in the next 2 weeks. We have the good, the bad, and ugly that we're viewing. We have the Glenn Bailey case, the man that did 42 years in prison. He had double murder. He had a gentleman that was arrested with him that was pulled off the street. Glenn Bailey met this man in the elevator, Oakland County Jail. First time he ever saw him. This man was given 2 life sentences plus 5 years. He did 10 years in prison. The district attorney found out 10 years later that he might have committed a wrong in his life and sent the wrong man to prison. He went to the district attorney's office and told him that I might have did something wrong. They told him that they wasn't going to open the case. The only way he's going to get out if you spend your money to get him out, which he did. He went back 10 years later and got him out of prison.
Wow.
So we had Glenn Bailey that was on. We have the gentleman that did 10 years. We have the arresting officer that was on the show. He, later on in life, he did a life sentence for murder. He did 20 years. So our next guest will be the district attorney on. So in the next 2 weeks, we'll have the district attorney on the show. So you guys tune in to the show. It's getting very, very interesting. So in a couple of weeks, we'll have the district attorney on in the Glenn Bailey case, the good, the bad, the ugly. Thank you and have a good night, and we'll see you next week.